Today's video is special all about Pooh Bear, Mr. Winnie the Pooh. Before you click off this video and think, this lady has lost her mind, why is she talking about Winnie the Pooh all of a sudden? I'm going to talk to you about how Mr. Pooh Bear can teach us some very critical mental health lessons as written about in the Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff, and A Walk in the Wood, Meditations on Mindfulness with a Bear Named Pooh by Dr. Joseph and Nancy Parent. Pooh Bear just goes with it, he just goes with the flow. He's just not anxious about things, even though, sometimes he kind of think, it seems like he is, the heffalumps and the woozles. But, he is okay. He's just well, I'm just going to go and it'll work out. I'm just going to start walking and I'm sure I'll end up where I wanted to go. So, get ready to maybe even take some notes. I have a mocktail and water, and we're ready to see. So to start with the Tao of Pooh as an introduction, the principles of Taoism, I wrote them down. I have notes even, you guys. And I titled my note page on all this Being Pooh, because that's what Pooh does. He's good at just being and being himself. So Tao means the way, and it's a particular way of appreciating, learning from, and working with whatever happens in everyday life. This was from this book. Taoist point of view, the natural result of this harmonious way of living is how you achieve happiness, essentially. I mean, I just paraphrased a little bit. Pooh is never as upset about how things are going as other characters, because he just accepts that things are the way they are, and that makes him a happier little bear. And I know that this might sound like a big simplification, and we are talking about a fictional teddy bear that comes to life in the 100-acre wood in this kid's imagination. I'm not saying that this will solve all of your mental health issues, but I think that Pooh can be a great little model sometimes for us to follow his example. How Benjamin Hoff sets up this book is really kind of cute too, because he sets it up as if he was sitting down to write a novel on Taoism, and as if Pooh is there and he keeps interrupting him, and they have these little interactions. And Pooh tells Benjamin Hoff, supposedly, he says that he had an awful dream. And he says that it was a jar of honey, but it kept moving. And so Benjamin Hoff writes that he assured Pooh that this is a nightmare, and many people have them, and it's not unusual. And Pooh, of course, says, oh, many people dream about unreachable jars of honey. And he says, well, no, but the general idea. And he says, the odd thing is, Pooh, some people even live their lives like that dream. And Pooh asks him why, and he says, perhaps it gives them something to do. And Pooh says, that doesn't sound like much fun to me. And so that brings Benjamin Hoff to his next point, which is that this is a way of life that keeps saying around the next corner, above the next step. When you're always saying, my life will be better when I lost weight, if I got married, if my kids didn't blah, 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 when they're older. And he talks about how this is going against the natural order of things, because obviously the world doesn't really change. Just because you want it to be tomorrow sooner, time does not speed up. And so going against the natural order by wishing our lives were different is why we're less happy, is basically the idea of this. Is you can increase your happiness if you accept things as they are in the present. Pretend that there's not some situations that are truly really, really hard. And there's trauma, there's abuse, there's grief after a devastating loss. There are things that are hard, and they're just going to be hard. And just trying to act like you're Winnie the Pooh isn't going to fix them. But this general idea of chasing the next thing and saying, I'll be happy when, it's making us all just a little bit more discontent, and it's actually pushing the happiness finish line further and further. And Pooh Bear just experiences it every day. From the Christopher Robin movie, one of my favorite Pooh Bear moments is when he asks for him to buy the red balloon at the train station. And he's like, but you don't need it. And, you know, he's just in a rush. And Pooh's like, yes, but I want it very much. And it would make me very happy if I had it for a little while. And he just gets so much joy out of those simple things. And it's true, like, sometimes we're in such a rush that we don't stop and notice, like, the little things that, oh, that might bring me a little bit of joy just for right now. It's so childlike. I mean, of course, because he is this toy, this Disney character, that everything about Pooh is childlike. But I think that would help us a lot as adults to stop and be like a child more often. So I'm going to try and find the quote, like who actually said this, but I was at the library reading a book called Spring Chicken a few weeks ago, and it was like about something about like going to live longer or die trying. It was funny, but it was all about like health and longevity. And there was a quote in there about we do not stop playing because we grow old because we stop playing. So I think that though Pooh is a little child, he is also very wise. I remember a part of the book in the Tao of Pooh that I thought about this part watching the Christopher Robin movie, one of the many times I've watched it, because I just think it's adorable, and it is a mental health boost when I watch it. But I remembered this part of this book where it points out that Pooh, it's this principle in Taoism called like the uncarved block, and essentially it's just like going with the flow, and like Pooh doesn't plan anything, which again I'm not saying is practical in every like real adult life situation, but he doesn't stress over the little details, like I think I already said about he'll just start walking and he's just so sure he's gonna end up where he needs to end up, and it always ends up working out for Mr. Pooh. With anxiety, obviously my brain is just convinced that something's gonna go wrong, and it will pull evidence of like a similar situation where something went terribly wrong, and so it's like you should avoid this situation because remember when this happened. So I think we need to start training our brains to believe things will work out more often and pull evidence of when something did work out. Now I'm still going through this book a little bit more. I've obviously read through the Tao of Pooh a couple of times now, but this one I have just flipped through. This one is styled, it talks about different ways to practice mindfulness, and it'll give a story with Winnie the Pooh, like a very short 1 to 2 page story or a little poem or something about Pooh Bear and his friends, and then that like paints a picture of a moment where you can then practice mindfulness. They'll actually give like exercises that you can do to be more mindful or present and grounded. And there's this running theme in this of when Pooh wakes up in the morning, he has his morning rhyme, and it's just let me start that over. Just 2 things to do to truly be Pooh. He gets up, he wakes up, he yawns, he stretches, he's in his cute little nightgown. Pooh's got a morning routine, and it's one that works for him, you know? He doesn't try to like copy anyone, which is something I'm going to start talking about a lot on my channel too, is like let's stop copying and pasting what works for other people. Let's find like the principles of why that's working for someone else rather than like following exactly what they're doing, because that might not work. It might not be sustainable for you. And yet if you're watching someone like a morning routine video and you're like, I want some healthy morning habits and being productive or working out more or whatever, and so we watch people and we get inspired, but I think sometimes we try and do the exact same thing that they did, and it just might not work for our lifestyle or our personality. Is also in this book, as far as mindfulness, even talks about like the being aware of like the texture and the weight of your sheets and blankets when you're making your bed. And I'm calling this idea mindfulness in the mundane. Because I think that's another lesson that Pooh teaches us is I think sometimes we will have big ideas, big goals and dreams and plans, and it feels like I can only execute that in a really big way when I have time. And we get so caught up in the like Monday through Friday 9 to 5 routine or whatever your schedule is. And maybe sometimes, I mean, I know I've been guilty of this, even when I'm not working full time 40-hour week. I'm like, I still felt like, well, I can only get to that kind of a project on a Saturday or whatever. And we'll put stuff off in our life because we feel like everything has to come together perfectly and be the right recipe for us to get started on something. And life is made up of like today. So getting started today, even though we don't see Pooh make these grand ambitious plans, I think Pooh actually can teach us about just getting started right now. He doesn't wait for tomorrow. He's just going to go about his day today. Oh, of course, we've heard very similar quotes from Pooh to this in A Walk in the Wood, page 52. Pooh asks Piglet what time it is, and Piglet says, "It's now." And so Pooh says, "Oh, it's my favorite time." Okay, and the last principle of mindfulness that's mentioned in A Walk in the Wood that Pooh Bear demonstrates that I wanted to share with you is facing fear with curiosity. So if you think about the creatures that come and are scary to the characters in A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh, and how they all respond differently. And it's not that Pooh is never afraid. He's not fearless. But he has this curiosity and almost this like patience. Like, well, let's find out what's really going to happen with this creature, like a woozle or a heffalump or a situation. You know, he's willing to accept his fear because he is this childlike thing. He's not going to question why he's afraid. He just feels his feelings, but he does question the whole situation. And let's just see what unfolds. He has that attitude about everything, so that also bleeds into his fears and a curiosity that is there. And I think that that's another great thing that would really help with mental health and especially anxiety is accepting if we're feeling afraid, but also then not just living with the fear after that, but trying to ask questions about why and what's behind it and what might go differently in this situation. And I think that that can ease a lot of anxiety. So that is all that I wanted to share today. I hope that I've helped you think about some ways that these common things in our lives, like a Disney character, can help us maybe shift our mindset about certain things or certain patterns that we have, and maybe help us be just a little bit happier. And I'll try to remember to link these two books. I got them both from Amazon for pretty cheap. I'm sure anywhere that you can buy books, you can get these. And so thank you for watching. I'll see you very soon with my next video, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty.
Stress. It's not stress. I'm stressed. It's Pooh. So exhausted. Madeline warned me. I like to be warmed.